Patient's Bill of Rights. Both of you say you would like to expand the individual's ability to sue your healthcare provider. And I wonder if both of you support those same positions, what is the differences between the two of you? And I guess I would start with you, Jim.
Well, I think it is true that I have supported a bill that passed the House of Representatives, or did not. The version that I voted for didn't pass the House. The version that I supported was one that emphasized less the lawsuits and more the settlement of those questions, those disputes outside of lawsuits. So there's no doubt that we have the same objective. And actually, the bill that I voted for does increase the ability of an individual to sue. But it says that first you will go through this process of trying to settle it before you have a lawsuit. The legislation that passed the House of Representatives is, in my view, just too much of a lawyer's dream. It allows you to sue in either the federal or the state court. It allows you even to sue if you don't even have that coverage. You can sue under it. That's not the way to get coverage. What we need to do is make sure that we get decisions made and get them made promptly. And having a dispute settlement mechanism is the way to do that, and that's the legislation that we supported. Ours would provide for more coverage for more people than the version that passed the House of Representatives.
Now, George, you supported the version that passed the House of Representatives.
The version that passed the House of Representatives is the true bipartisan version. It was a version that passed by a vote of 275 to 151. It's the Norwood-Dingell bill. And that measure did have a right to sue provision, and that was more expansive than the one that Jim has mentioned. But his right to sue provision is so narrow that its effect will be negligible. This is not about making lawyers rich. This is not about trial lawyers. This is about accountability. This is about assuring that the culture of the HMOs, the health maintenance organizations and managed care organizations, is changed so that they feel the heat when they make decisions affecting one's treatment or diagnostic procedures that are going to be allowed for a medically necessary ailment. This is about ensuring that they are held accountable when that's done, that they are held accountable for their decision in the event that someone is injured or whatever. What Jim's bill did was it watered down the right to sue provision so much that it effectively made it non-existent and would have no power. The measure that passed the House of Representatives was actually, there were 3 amendments that were offered to water down the right to sue. All 3 amendments Jim voted for, all 3 amendments failed, and then he voted against the bill. 1/3 of his Republican colleagues voted for it. So he's out of touch on that particular issue.
That's absolutely not true, George. The legislation that we have allows the doctor and the patient to have total access to each other, and the HMO can't intercede. It allows the patient to choose an OB/GYN as their primary care physician. It allows what we call a prudent layperson standard if you go to the emergency room. It does all of these things. That's right. I understand. You prefer to have suits. I don't think that gets health care to anybody, lawsuits.
It's accountability, Jim.
I think the answer to getting...
And you don't want them to be held accountable.
I think the answer to getting health care to people is to be able to make decisions when there's a dispute between an HMO and a doctor or the patient. We need to have a way of settling that. And we don't do it with a lawsuit. The person would be dead before they'd ever get that determination made.
Let's jump to Aage Nost. What would the libertarians do?
Yeah, I'm absolutely for a patient's a bill of rights. There has to be, that's a must. We got to do that. But I think we're going a little bit too far again. When you talk about healthcare here, we got to look at some of the things that they're doing in Europe, because there's something sick in the healthcare system. Like, we got to go more into alternative healthcare, because in Europe right now, and I got some things here that is available in Europe that is being ignored here, probably because it works. Like in England, they have a cure for alcoholism. It's called Abstam, and it works about every time. It's a pill. And we also have a cure for breast cancer in England. And stroke victims in Sweden and places, they rush them to a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and they bring them back to about 100% all the time, just about.
Let's jump over to Michael Green.
America spends more money on health care than any country in the world. The World Health Organization ranks us as 37th. We have roughly 11% of our Caucasian population uninsured, 23% of the black population and Asian populations uninsured, and roughly 33% of the Hispanic population. Greens are calling for universal health care. We believe by having a universal health care system, eliminating for-profit HMOs, there's actually enough money in the system now to provide that. I also do support a patient's Bill of Rights.
Okay.
My argument briefly, I know the time's short, with the Norwood Ding bill is it forces you into federal court on administrative decisions and state court on medical decisions. You should have access to both courts.
It's time for our closing statements. George Cunningham, we start with you.
Well, there are significant differences in this campaign between myself and the incumbent congressman in the areas of Social Security, health care, as well as education. In education, his commitment is very weak in terms of reducing class sizes, hiring new teachers, and funding for Head Start. He suggests that it's strong, but it is very weak. His position with regard to health care and the right to sue and ensuring that patients really have a right to hold them accountable is very, very weak. And in those areas, we differ dramatically.
Michael Green.
Thank you very much. I am running on a platform that goes beyond Social Security, education, and health. I invite you to visit my website at votemgreen.org. I believe in campaign finance reform, which is an issue that seems to have fallen apart in the election. I'm also believe that it is time for us to end the war on drugs, and that's an issue that I've invited both Mr. Cunningham and Mr. Colby to join me in a public debate this next week.
Aage Nost.
Well, you know, the Libertarians have always stood for lesser government and try to get the federal government out of our hair. And for the things that is necessary, there is more money in government that is necessary to fund the whole thing because they have private investment funds that they are not disclosing to us. And this is one of the things I will try to get back to the people that actually was extracted from informal taxes.
Jim Colby, the final word.
Yeah, I want to thank Channel 4 and the Arizona Daily Star for sponsoring this candidates forum this afternoon. It's been my pleasure for the last 16 years, my honor, to represent the citizens of the 5th Congressional District in the United States Congress. If I am reelected, I intend to continue working on the issues of health care, of education, of preserving our land, of the lifestyle that we love in southern Arizona. I will continue to work to open markets so that we can trade and do business overseas. I will continue to work to keep a balanced budget so that we will pass on to the next generation the benefits of a balanced budget.
Okay,
and I thank
Jim.
you today.
All right, we're going to throw it back over to Tom McNamara. Tom?
All right. Sandy and Joe, thank you, and we'll see both of you in the time ahead. We'd also like to thank our candidates for their willingness to spend some time and share their thoughts with us today and their positions. Much more to come now this afternoon. We'll be here for quite a while. We'll dive into the Pima County Board of Supervisors races when we return.